If you're watching this video, chances are you want to improve your portrait photography. Some of the questions you may ask is, how do I improve my portraits? Or what do I need to take my portrait photography skills to the next level and fast? And all too often you'll hear other creators talking about hundreds of generic things that don't really have much of an impact when it comes to improving your portraits. And as a result, it often leaves photographers with more questions than answers. Sometimes people start thinking like, should I get this camera? Should I get this lens? If I only had XYZ, then it will help me get good photos. Listen, I get it. I was once in your position once. Honestly, like none of this had an improvement in my photography. And as a result, I was angry at myself. I was overzealous. I just wanted to make dope photos without some understanding of what makes a photo look good. And because of that, it brought me back to the fundamentals of photography. Photography, in its Greek root words, literally means the drawing of light. Photo means light and graphy means to draw or to write. So photography is all about light, right? So every time you take a photo, you're just there to capture how beautiful that light is. Am I right? When I heard this, everything started to click for me. I started to view the world in a way that makes sense for a photographer. I started to look at light differently. The way I improved my photography is to follow the light. I look at photography like a video game. When you start a brand new game, your character is at the lowest level. And in order to get powerful and get stronger and learn better skills, you have to go out there and just grind and farm those XP points, aka experience points, to level up. And once you level up, you learn a new move, you get stronger, your health bar increases, so you can withstand more damages in battle. I think this is a good analogy for anything in life, and it goes well for photography also. The more you go out and shoot, the more experience points it's gained, the more knowledge and skill you acquire as a photographer. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how, as a photographer, you can use light to create more artistic and creative works that will level up your photography just by following the light. So why don't we just get started with shadow play. This is when direct sunlight passes through gaps or holes in walls or in between buildings in the street, or when direct sunlight passes through gaps or holes in metallic fences, when the light shines through window blinds to create awesome streaks of light on your model. I call this shadow play, and it's another way to create visual interest for your viewers. Whenever I go out, I'm always looking at how light leaks in different areas, such as direct sunlight to shine through things such as leaves, plants, or tree branches. This will effectively create stunning light textures or abstract shapes of lights onto your model. You can also use a multitude of different household objects in order to create this same light leak effect. Another is window blinds, when the sun is just piercing through the window, creating that visual interest that will definitely be eye-catching for your viewers as well. Another thing you can use is tennis rackets. I've seen people doing portrait photography with tennis rackets and using the light to create shadows from the rackets, and as well as pasta strainers. With the pasta strainers, you can create some cool looking designs on your subject's face using these light leaks, as you are seeing right now. As long as the light leaks go through some holes, you are sort of using it like an overlay and placing it onto the subject's face and getting some interesting portraits. And these are some of the ways I've used light in my portrait photography. And I think it's a very good way for you to gain XP and level up your photography as well, because it just puts you in a creative mind space and you start to look at light differently. Another way to use light is to use something like a light prism. I like to use one of these prisms whenever I go out because it does offer a unique look when the light hits the prism. You can get something interesting like this. And if you are interested in what light prism I use, I'll leave the link to them down in the description below. You can also use a sun catcher prism to get those rainbow color effect onto the model's face. These items will create some rainbow color textures that you can use on your subjects to create some stunning portraits as well. Now, if you live in an area where you don't see light 9 months out of the year, Seattle where it's rainy all the time, Vancouver where it's cloudy and rainy all the time, London, England, where it's cloudy and rainy all the time, what I can recommend to you is to use this projector from GODOX. It is called the AR21, and what it is a projector where you can add this to your strobe, such as the GODOX AK-R21, which is what I'm using right now. You can mount these onto the strobe, point it directly onto the model, and start firing away. You can create some interesting pieces with this as well. GODOX do sell different slides, so if you're interested, I'll leave some information on this in the description below so you can check that out after. Okay, let's move on to another tip, and that is to create contrast while using light. When you create contrast, you are creating depth and separation in your shots, giving you more of that 3D looking image that everyone is trying to master when you first start out. One way I create contrast in my shots is to place the model by the windows. What the light does is it wraps the model's face, creating the depth that you want in a photograph. This gives you the definition and the sculpture that you need to give it that 3D feel. And I call this Sidelight. It's the one that I tend to use most in my photography. Sidelight not only helps to highlight the subject's shape, it also brings out textures. This type of lighting is especially good for creating a unique mood. Lighting the subject from the side emphasizes shadows. Just take a look at this shot where I used light to create depth. You can see here in this photo of my friend John, one side of his face is exposed by the light, but it slowly tapers off and you start to see shadow on the other side of his face. And this is what I mean by creating contrast. A famous painter by the name of Rembrandt used this technique so much that we call this the Rembrandt lighting. At its most basic, Rembrandt lighting consists of a single light source placed on a 45-degree offset from the subject, about 5 feet away, positioned roughly 2 feet higher than eye level. The light source is angled slightly downward and hits the side of the face that is the furthest away from the camera. And it's a popular technique because it creates images that look both dramatic yet natural. It's predominantly characterized by a lit up triangle underneath the subject's eye on the less illuminated area of the face. This is easier to achieve with a strobe as well, and it looks something like this. I also use Sidelight as a rim/edge lighting as well. This creates that separation to boost depth and dimension in your portraits. Depth and contrast adds mood, it adds drama, and it creates a mysterious and powerful look that your viewers will be drawn to and engaged with. Another way I use lighting is backlighting. This method is one that I use very often. Why I use backlighting is it's a very effective way to separate your model from the background. And using backlighting, you can also create some beautiful hair and rim lighting around your subject. So how do you do this? You find a light source and then you place that light source behind the model. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. What you are doing is separating your subject from the background as the light creates these halo effect that makes your subject stand out from the background. If you want something dramatic, backlighting can create silhouettes. Silhouette is a powerful way to capture an image as it creates a lot of dark area contrasting with the light to give you a beautiful outline of the subject. Backlighting can also give you a nice hair light on your subject, creating that depth and separation, giving you more of that 3D pop that everyone desires in the photo. So when in doubt, backlight everything. That's one of the things that I've learned on the field when I'm taking a lot of portraits. Sometimes the light doesn't work in my favor, so I find that just by backlighting everything, it gives me a little bit more separation, and it's cost effective and it will give you amazing results in no time. And lastly, I want to talk about low light portraits. The reason why low light portraits gives you such a dramatic photo is because of the heavy contrast. The background is obviously dark because it's nighttime, and then you only have the one light source on the subject's face. And I should say that background isn't completely dark, but sometimes there are lights in the background which creates visual interest in your shots. I often use the city lights as bokeh sometimes. The city lights do make an interesting backdrop as well, as it creates atmosphere for the subject to be in. Low light portraits is one of my favorite ways to learn about lighting, just because of how striking it can look. I think because of it, I've increased my XP exponentially. I've learned about lighting without even knowing the proper terminology for it. It's not until a few years down the line, people left comments on my Instagram page, did I slowly start to understand what they're talking about. So I was already doing all these techniques without knowing. So I highly recommend for you guys to try out low light portraits. If you guys are getting bored of using the sunlight as a light source. If you do low light portraits outside in the city, look for window lights, neon lights, city lights, any kind of traffic lights, any type of light source you can find, and then just get creative with it. That's how I've learned to follow the light. When I see a light that is interesting, I try to go there and see if I can do anything interesting with that light source, and then compose it in a way where the city is the backdrop to create that visual interest that gets people engaged. Alright, there you have it, folks. These are some of my ways that I've leveled up my portrait photography, and every time I go out, I'm just following the light. During the day, I'm looking at where the light is angled. That's when I use Sidelight, because now you're starting to get like interesting shadows around the area, and then I try to play with that to create visual interest with my subject. Once you can wrap your head around this, it's game over for your competition out there, man. And I hope you guys learned something from this video, and if you find this video helpful, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel. Your support would mean the world to me. I do photography related things on this channel. And as always, my name is Tongue, and I'll see you in the next video. I love you. Okay, bye. Ooh.